often get asked, how do you ask for a pay rise? And my first response is always, why do you want one? Is it because you're trying to re-engage with your job because you're not enjoying it? Because if that's the case, maybe salary or a pay rise isn't really the answer. So first thing is have a really good think about why you want a pay rise. If you feel that a pay rise is well and truly justified, back that up with some supporting evidence. Have a look at your job description. Go through it. Are you doing all the things that are listed on there exceptionally well all the time? If you are, then you may well be in a really good position to ask for a pay rise. But if there are some gaps and you're not exceeding your goals, it may be very hard for your boss to be able to justify, quite often to his boss or to any investors, that they need to pay more money. A real question is to ask, what value do you provide to the organisation? Are you going above and beyond? Are you delivering exceptional service every day, all of the time? It's easier to ask for a pay rise if you've got very clear goals. If you know what the goals are for your job and what you need to achieve, and you also have evidence that you're doing that really, really well, consistently, it's much easier to ask for a pay rise. If you don't have that supporting documentation, have a stop and think about what have you actually achieved in the past month, the past quarter, the past review period, so that you can go to your boss with some solid evidence as why you think a pay rise is justified. When I get asked for a pay rise by one of my staff, there's three things that I consider. The first is, are they doing their job consistently well all of the time? Are they exceeding their goals, their targets? The second is, do they have an X factor? Do they have something else that they bring that provides tremendous value to my team and to the organisation? And the third one is going above and beyond. Are you going out of your way to really put in that extra discretionary effort? If the answer to all those three questions is yes, it's much easier as a manager to be able to justify that decision. Because invariably, it means that the cost base of the organisation is going to increase, and for myself or any manager, we need to be able to justify that to our boss as well. Some tips I'd give when thinking about preparation or research for your discussion with your manager about a pay rise is to actually do some market research on salaries. Are you being paid fairly? Are you slightly above the average? Are you slightly below? And where do you sit in compared to the market? Another thing to think about when asking for a pay rise is, how is your team doing? Is your team or department exceeding expectations? Is your company actually profitable, or is it actually struggling at the moment? Because if it is, it's going to be very hard for any manager to justify increasing the cost base of the organisation. Another tip when asking for a pay rise is pick your timing very carefully. You want to have a real discussion with your manager when they can actually stop and think about, what's right for you and what's right for your career, but also what's right for the organisation. So make sure there's a time in your calendar and your boss's calendar booked in advance so that you both have time to do some preparatory research, so that when you sit down and have a real discussion, you can actually go through the core issues. Another really important thing to think about when asking for a pay rise is, what's the likely answer you're going to get? Is it a straight yes? If so, fantastic, well done. It could be a negotiation whereby your boss actually wants to talk to you about some increased level of responsibility, or perhaps some pay rise conditions for the future, provided that you meet some benchmarks. Or your boss could actually say no. And if that's the case, have a think about, what's your response from that? Do you really enjoy your job and want to stay doing what you're doing? And if so, a fair question to ask your boss is to say, okay, well, what can I do to set myself up for the future? Can we agree on some very clear deliverables? And if I exceed those, then I might be able to get a pay rise in the future. Asking for a pay rise can be a really uncomfortable thing to do, so before you do it, feel free to pick up the phone, give us any of our consultants a call here at Optimum Consulting. We'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you, give you some tips, give you some advice, and maybe challenge your thinking a little bit along the way, so that when you do have that meeting with your boss, you're well prepared. Good luck.